One of the most controversial but often ignored debates on today's education system is whether or not America's education system is maintained as a modern-day version of slavery. As absurd as this conclusion may be, there are shockingly several reasons as to why this may be true. For instance, slaves were not allowed to learn how to read as for fear that they would rebel against their white owners. In comparison, the American students that are of a minority group have higher illiteracy rates in their communities. This issue has been focused on before, but it was 13-year-old Jada Williams who sparked the debate after writing a response essay to a Frederick Douglass narrative. Williams' essay focused on her own experience and how it proves that today's education system is maintaining the slavery that existed during Frederick Douglass's time. Although Jada Williams was looked down on by her teachers and peers, she was able to share her essay and thoughts with her community.
The teachers are not as vocal about us not learning how it has been described in this narrative, but their action speaks volumes.
All right now.
When I myself sit in a crowded classroom and no real concrete instruction is taking place, it makes the saying, history does repeat itself all the time.
Williams introduced several points for one to reflect on, and with much research and observation of existing statistics, I have discovered that her conclusion of the education system as an effort to maintain slavery of blacks may be correct. The first supporting fact is that fundamentally less resources are given to impoverished black kids. Minorities do not have access to computers, up-to-date textbooks, or even advanced or college prep classes. In fact, a 2009 study done by the U.S. Department of Education found that more than 2 million students in 7,300 schools had no access at all to calculus classes, a staple of many high-achieving high schools. These minority students are already placed at a disadvantage when they attend schools with lower funding by the government, and the amount that is spent on these minority students is only going down. A 2012 study conducted by the Center for American Progress found that a 10% increase in students of color at a school is associated with a $75 decrease in per-pupil spending. These school districts are blatantly giving these minority schools less money, which poses the question, do they really want blacks and Hispanics to achieve the same or higher level of success of white students? Or do they really want these students to become minimum wage workers that are practically enslaved to the majority? The second supporting fact is that less teachers of color and more teachers who have little experience are employed at these schools where the majority of students are black. This means that white teachers are in a position of power to dictate what they can, cannot, and will learn. Important stories that relate to the many black students of the classroom may be overlooked. Knowledge can give these students the power to succeed, for this is the same power that slaves fought for in learning how to read and write, but the teacher, much like the overseer, possesses the power to hinder this growth. The most disturbing supporting element is the seemingly stable school-to-prison pipeline. Far too often, students are suspended, expelled, or even arrested for minor offenses that leave visits to the principal's office a thing of the past. But the zero-tolerance policy applies to all students, or does it? Statistics reflect that these policies disproportionately target students of color and those with a history of abuse, neglect, poverty, or learning disabilities. Students of color face harsher discipline and are more likely to be pushed out of school than whites. 30% of the U.S. population is either black or Latino, yet they make up for 61% of the incarcerated population. 68% of all males in state and federal prison do not have a high school diploma. The harshness of the system shows the inability of officials to see minorities as people, as well as their willingness to continue to place chains on blacks in order to restrict their freedom and growth. For years, blacks have fought for education equality, yet more and more problems arise that place them behind whites. Nothing is done about the inadequate funding or the school-to-prison pipeline, and rather blacks continue to be the enslaved members of our society.